So the last thing I want to talk about is slavery in Egypt, and this is because a lot of people have the kind of idea from it comes from our Judeo-Christian background, the Jews slaving in Egypt, building construction projects for the pharaoh, that all Egyptian construction was done through slavery, and this is just not the case. If we look at the written records from Giza, we see that the workers there are provisioned extremely well. They're given lots of beer and bread and meat. There's an emphasis by the overseers to make sure that the people are healthy, happy, and well fed through this. And that's not the kind of care you would necessarily put into slaves. And so the people who built Giza, the pyramids of Giza, as we talked about, were probably not slaves, but were conscripted workers, people who were volunteering during certain times of the year uh, to build these large funerary monuments. Now, during the Middle Kingdom, we start to see the importance of some small scale slavery, but it's not really until the New Kingdom and the reaction that we see after the period of foreign rule that we see a change or an emphasis on slavery. Now, during the Middle Kingdom, foreign peoples were welcomed into Egypt. So we have a large group of Nubian populations coming up from the south that are incorporated into Egyptian society. We even have a dynasty of Nubian pharaohs within the Middle Kingdom. We have in the lower Egypt that Tel El Daba Avaris, right, this large Canaanite population who's living in the delta and trading with the extensive resources of Egypt, and they would then become the Hyksos, right, these foreign rulers in the Second Intermediate period. And I think this kind of reaction. The reaction to that is what led to this. It's a reconceptualization of who is Egyptian and who isn't, a kind of xenophobia that leads to a different type of slavery. Also, we see the importance of these wars of conquest. The Egyptian army is out on military campaign every year to bring spoils of war, gold, silver, objects, but also people and livestock back to Egypt to support this institution. And so when we see that, these people then become an important shift. The wars of conquest brought prisoners of war who were sold in slave markets to estate owners and to donated to temple institutions. And then these slaves would perform the agricultural labor. Now, this also has a profound effect on Egyptian organization, right? Because as the slaves are performing the day to day agricultural labor and construction practices, it frees up the adult men who traditionally would have done those tasks. All right, it frees them up to become professional soldiers, which then makes the Egyptian military more powerful so they can then go capture more booty and slaves. So we have this kind of cyclical effect. More slaves means more soldiers in the Egyptian army, and more soldiers means more slaves that are brought in to kind of provide for the economic foundation of Egyptian society. So slavery here in the system becomes an important marker. It's a way of establishing who is Egyptian and who is not Egyptian. It's a reaction. And slaves are other. They are Mitanni, they are Babylonian, they are Nubian, they are Cushite, right? They are groups of people who are subjugated. And here you can see that kind of subjugation involves the direct control of their day-to-day bodily functions through this. So slavery is this kind of expression of power over an individual that has been conquered in war. And through this, it reshapes Egyptian society. So now Egyptian men become soldiers rather than farmers. And this has a kind of a profound effect on the temple institutions themselves. Now, excuse me. The other thing that we can kind of start to see is that we see expansion in building projects, especially in the latter half of the New Kingdom under kings like Ramesses II. Um, and all of these building projects are all built with slave labor based on our administrative texts. And so it's not surprising that this is also corresponds. Ramesses is mentioned as the pharaoh of the Exodus in the Bible. And two of the massive construction cities that he undertakes in the Delta at Pi-Ramesses, his new capital, and Pithom, are the sites that are mentioned as the sites that the Jews built under Ramesses. So we have this kind of historical connection, this historical memory that's played out in the Judeo-Christian connection, and that really emphasizes the importance of slavery for Egyptian organization. And that legacy has really kind of clouded most of our understanding of Egyptian labor practices, because it's only in the latter half of the New Kingdom that that kind of system establishes itself fully. For most of Egyptian history, all of these temples and constructs were built by volunteer or conscripted labor, right? By Egyptian citizens. And how we kind of think about that and frame it's a little bit different, but individuals within Egyptian society who were doing it not because they were forced to, but because it was part of religious devotion, or as what they were expected to within the system. So the system of slavery, the New Kingdom, we see the establishment of a completely new style of Egyptian economy that is built inherently on slave labor, rather than on the religious compulsion to build that we see in the Old and Middle Kingdom.